welcome back to the deep dive. You give us the sources, we do the heavy lifting, giving you that definitive shortcut to getting up to speed. Today, we're tackling a big one, really, a question that kind of defines where cars are going. When you look past that initial price tag for an EV like a Tesla, does the math actually work out for you, down the road? We're not just talking sticker price. No, we're doing a deep dive into the real number, the 10-year total cost of ownership, the TCO. And our focus today is pretty specific. We're looking at one person's detailed strategy, really trying to minimize the TCO on a used 2021 Tesla Model Y long range. It's like someone laid out their whole financial game plan for us.
Yeah, and we need to be really clear about the assumptions here. It's a specific scenario. The car starts with 30,000 miles on the clock, and the plan is to drive it 10,000 miles a year, every year, for 10 years. So that takes it up to 140,000 miles total, which is, quite a lot. And importantly, to make these numbers work, we had to sort of freeze things in time. No inflation figured in, no changes to like government incentives. And this is a big one. It assumes full self-driving FSD basically stays as it is now. It's just a cost, doesn't really add functional value or make money in this calculation.
Okay, so we've pulled numbers from places like Edmunds, Bankrate, even specialized warranty companies to sort of piece this roadmap together. And the whole point is to see how this used Model Y compares long-term against some benchmarks. We're talking the Toyota RAV4, which is, huge in its segment, and maybe something like a BMW for a performance comparison. Let's start at the beginning then, buying the car. Okay, so the core idea is buying used. That way you skip that huge initial depreciation hit. This analysis kicks off with a purchase price of $29,682 for that 2021 Model Y.
29.6. Okay, that immediately makes me think, what about the used EV tax credit? The source mentioned, didn't it, that if they could find one just under 25K, boom, $4,000 off the TCO right away. That's a big chunk.
Exactly. A huge potential saving, but for this calculation, they stuck with the actual $29,602 figure they based the plan on. So no credit factored into the main number we'll get to. Then you've got the immediate costs, the fixed stuff, taxes and fees first. And it's interesting how it works. Year one is pretty hefty, almost $2,200,
Right.
$2,178 to be exact, in various fees. But after that first hit, the annual taxes drop way down, like $46 a year. It really shows how front-loaded those costs can be.
46 bucks a year. Wow. Okay.
Then financing. The plan uses a 5-year loan, 7% interest rate, which feels pretty realistic right now. Over the 5 years, that borrowing cost adds, $6,583 to the total cost.
Okay, $6.5 grand for financing. Now, insurance. This is often the gotcha moment for EVs, right? We hear all the time Teslas cost more to insure than, say, a Honda or a Toyota. Something about the sensors, repair costs.
That's generally true, yeah. The complex tech, the specific body panels, it can drive up repair costs, which insurers notice. But the source here, they kind of relied on getting a good deal, possibly through Tesla's own insurance, which can be, as they put it, aggressively priced in certain states. Colorado was the example given. So for this plan, they budgeted, well, maybe a bit optimistically, an average of $1,200 a year.
$1,200 a year. That number feels like maybe the shakiest assumption in the whole thing. Did they explain how they'd keep it that low? Because if that suddenly jumps to $2,000 or $2,500, that gap between the Tesla and the RAV4 starts looking a lot smaller, doesn't it?
It does. The justification was that the owner would be actively managing it, shopping around each year, adjusting coverage, basically not just letting it auto-renew at whatever rate the company offers. It relies on the owner being proactive about cost minimization. If they're passive, yeah, that number's definitely going up.
Okay, fair enough. Active management required. So let's move past the initial wallet hit. Let's talk about where the EV should shine, the running costs. This is where the Model Y is supposed to make up ground. And, I adore these detailed calculations. I really do. Because they give you such a clear picture, a real vision of what it actually means to own an electric car day to day. It takes it out of the abstract. It's about, well, fundamentally removing the engine from the whole equation.
Exactly. And that removal translates directly to really minimal scheduled maintenance. We're talking wiper blades, washer fluid, cabin air filters.
Yeah.
The budget for that is maybe $200 every other year. Over 10 years, it's almost nothing compared to a gas car.
200 every 2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, but what about other stuff? Things that maybe gas cars don't need or things that still wear out?
Right. Good point. The plan did get specific there. It includes things like tire rotation, $50 a year. That's important with the weight and instant torque of EVs. Then brake fluid replacement every 4 years, budgeted at $200. And this one's interesting. The AC dissicant bag replacement.
Hang on, dissecant bag. What is that, and why is it a $350 line item? Sounds kind of important.
It is, yeah. It's basically like a moisture absorber for the air conditioning system.
Yeah.
Now, in a gas car, you might not touch the AC for ages. But in an EV, the AC system often does double duty. It cools the cabin, sure, but can also be crucial for cooling the battery pack.
Ah, okay. Battery cooling. Makes sense.
So keeping moisture out is key for preventing corrosion and making sure that battery cooling loop works properly. Tesla recommends replacing that bag every 4 years. It's one of those specific EV maintenance things. Beyond that, standard stuff.
Yeah.
A 12-volt battery EVs still have one of those, like a regular car. Replace it maybe every 4 years, $200, and an alignment also every 4 years, about $100.
Got it. Now, tires, that's always a big cost, right? Especially on heavier EVs with all that torque they can chew through tires. But the strategy here sounds pretty clever.
It really is a smart move in the plan. Instead of just slapping on expensive premium tires, like Michelin's or something, which cost a fortune, the plan specifically targets high-rated but lower-cost alternatives. They mentioned the Radar Dymax brand as an example. Budgeting only $800 a set, instead of maybe double that, fundamentally changes the long-term cost. It takes a potentially huge expense and makes it manageable. Smart cost control.
800 a set versus, yeah, maybe 1,600 or more. That's a massive saving over 100,000 miles. Okay. And now, the big one, fuel, or, well, electricity.
This is where it gets pretty remarkable, but it hinges completely on how the owner charges. The plan assumes they have home solar, and they cover 90% of their miles. That's 9,000 miles a year using that solar power. Even pricing that energy conservatively at 5 cents per kilowatt hour, the home charging cost per year is only about $150.
$150 for 9,000 miles of driving.
Yeah. Then the other 1,000 miles, maybe for road trips or whatever, that's assumed to be on superchargers. And even using the higher supercharger rate, say 45 cents per kilowatt hour, that only adds another $150 or so. Okay, so step back. The total annual fuel cost electricity for driving 10,000 miles in this Model Y, just $300.
$300 a year. That number alone. Wow. Anyone paying, hundreds a month for gas has got to pay attention to that. But that brings us neatly to the elephant in the room for older, high-mileage EVs. What happens when things break outside of warranty? Let's talk risk mitigation.
Right. This is probably the biggest fear factor. We've all heard stories about potentially massive battery or drivetrain repair bills. So the strategy in this plan was basically to neutralize that risk up front. They decided to buy a really comprehensive extended warranty, specifically a 10-year, 100,000-mile zero-deductible warranty from a company called Accelerate Auto. The cost for that was $4,819.
Okay, almost $5,000. That's a significant chunk of change up front, but you called it a strategic asset, not just insurance. Why?
Well, because of what it does for the car's value later on and the flexibility. The source pointed out this warranty is transferable if you sell the car.
Ah, so the next owner gets the coverage.
Exactly. Or if you sell it early, you can often get a prorated refund for the unused portion. So it's not just money spent on protection. It's like you're shielding the car's value against that catastrophic repair risk. It becomes a selling point.
Yeah.
They also budgeted a little extra, like $200 a year, for small things the warranty might not cover.
That makes a lot of sense. Locking in peace of mind and potentially bolstering resale value. Okay, what about depreciation? That's the silent killer of TCO for most cars, right? They just plummet in value.
Yeah, usually. The assumption here is, well, maybe a bit aggressive, but there's logic to it. They use standard industry figures, like from Edmunds, for the first 5 years where depreciation is steepest. But after year 5, the plan assumes the value only drops by about $1,000 per year.
Only $1,000 a year. Why so slow?
The thinking is that a well-maintained EV, mainly because its running costs are so incredibly low, by that point no big engine repairs looming, super cheap fuel, should actually hold its value better than an equivalent gas car. The market, theoretically, should start valuing that low running cost. So, the projection estimates the residual value, after 10 years and 140,000 miles, would still be at least $7,570.
$7,500 left after a decade and all those miles.
No, there's just...
So, looking at the whole ownership period, the cost profile changes dramatically over time.
Oh, absolutely. Once you get past those first 5 years you've paid off the loan, you've absorbed the steepest depreciation. The actual cost of keeping the car running is tiny. According to the numbers, the second 5 years of owning this Model Y only cost about 38% of what the first 5 years cost.
38%? Wow.
Yeah, and even if you spread the cost of that big extended warranty evenly across the whole decade, the second half still only costs about 46% of the first half. It's just incredibly cheaper to run long term.
That is a really compelling long-term picture. Okay. We've laid out all the pieces, the assumptions, the strategies. Time for the big reveal. What's the final TCO number, and how does it stack up? So under this very specific cost-minimizing 10-year, 100,000-mile plan, the estimated total cost of ownership for the used 2021 Tesla Model Y comes out to $59,276, $59,000, which works out to about 60 cents per mile driven. Now, to really get what that means, we need the comparisons.
Definitely. And we have to be careful here. Comparing TCO across different sources is tricky. The figures for competitors, like the RAV4, often assume more miles per year, maybe 15,000. Sometimes they even assume you buy two different cars over 10 years. So we had to adjust. We tried to strip out extra financing, extra sales tax, extra fuel cost to make the comparison as close to the Model Y's 100,000-mile target as possible.
Right, apples to apples as much as possible.
Exactly. So after those adjustments, the estimated 10-year TCO for the Toyota RAV4 landed at $77,099.
77,000 versus 59, that's what, almost an $18,000 difference in favor of the Tesla over 10 years?
Yep,
Yeah.
about that much. Now, what about something with similar performance or luxury aspirations?
The BMW comparison.
Right. If you want that level of performance and sort of premium feel, you look at a comparable BMW. We had estimated its depreciation in the later years using a similar ratio to the Toyota data,
Yeah.
and the estimated 10-year TCO for the comparable BMW just explodes. It came out to $154,434.
Whoa. 154,000? That's
Yeah.
more than double. Almost 3 times the Tesla cost.
Pretty much. Nearly 3 times as much.
Oh, so let's just pause on that. This specific strategy for owning a used Model Y makes it 30% cheaper than a mainstream Toyota RAV4 over 10 years, and almost 3 times cheaper than a comparable luxury performance BMW, while still giving you arguably better performance, more tech, and that premium EV experience.
That's the core finding. That's the value proposition that's shaking things up. Getting that kind of performance in tech, that sort of crossover utility, for less than the long-term cost of a standard, reliable Toyota, that's a huge driver for why people are looking at EVs, regardless of anything else. And, source material mentioned being impartial about, say, high-profile figures in the EV space. Because for most buyers, it really just boils down to economics. They're looking for the best vehicle they can get for their money. And this analysis, at least, shows that under the right conditions, the used EV can offer really compelling, quantifiable value.
Absolutely. That financial outcome specifically driven by really thinking through the long-term costs, getting that warranty, minimizing fuel costs, that's the aha moment. It shifts the perception of the used Model Y from maybe a slightly premium buy to potentially an outstanding long-term value.
It really does. And maybe one final thought to leave you with, thinking bigger picture. We generally think electric vehicles, fewer moving parts, maybe less wear and tear on core components. They seem like they're built to last potentially longer than traditional gas cars. So if that's true, how might these TCO calculations change if we start thinking about owning cars for 15 years or even 20 years instead of just 10? That would likely just amplify the financial advantage we've seen today, wouldn't it? Something to think about.
A very interesting thought. Stretching that ownership window could make the numbers even more dramatic. Well, thank you for bringing these sources in and going on this deep dive with us today. And thank you for tuning in and sharing your curiosity with us.